Right.
We on?
We're back.
We're back in action.
Welcome. You know, always some technical difficulties, some speaking difficulties as well. But welcome to episode 41. Today we have a special guest. It's not you.
It's not.
It is Jonathan Beverly.
It's not
He's
you
always
either,
here.
Karen.
Yeah.
We have Jonathan Beverly, an author of Your Best Stride, who's going to be calling in live around 12:30. And it's a really great book. I'm only about 1 or 2 chapters in, but we've gotten to know Jonathan over the past year. We've met him at some major races.
We bugged the crap out of him at the last.
We met him at the running event, and then we also met him at the New York City Marathon.
Right.
And he used to be an editor at the Running Times. He's a coach, great writer, and he's written a bunch of different books. And he has agreed to give away 2 signed copies of this book to you guys.
You got a signed copy.
I got a signed copy that says, "Tonight." That's gonna be all blown out.
So
Tonight,
let me
run.
just to get this
tall.
clear. You have a signed copy.
Yes.
He's giving me 2 signed copies to our audience.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, bro.
Jonathan's watching this right now.
I know.
So you know.
Jonathan's watching this. Craig is not feeling it, but
yeah, but we're really excited to have Jonathan on. He is a longtime writer for Runner's World. He writes all over the place. I mean, he is an institution in the world of editorial on running, and just an expert in all facets of the sport. So when we went to the running event, we basically went and talked. We're like, "Hey, what do you do here? Tell us how to do it."
Yeah, and he's actually in our video that we published that day.
That's
we
right.
had to sneak in there and everything.
So we have the ability to take calls, as you guys may know from previous weeks. The number is down below, and of course we have a contest going, as you mentioned, so click the link below in order to enter the contest. I may have put my own YouTube channel in there. I don't know, it might have slipped in there as like a contest entry. You can never be sure about these things.
You can, if you want to run and negotiate at the same time, go ahead and check that out. But let's see where you guys are coming in from.
We got lots of people.
We have a lot of
Running
people
Geek Girl,
coming in.
good to see you again. Heather Jurgensen, I haven't seen that name in a little while.
Forrest of Dean Runner is here. Tone, hey guys from Hampton,
Lizzie
Virginia.
runs far.
Lizzie runs far from Massachusetts. Hope you guys are doing okay in all that snow. Heather says hi from Denver. Anne Marie says hello from St. Joseph, Missouri. The Hobson says hi from Austria. Shubham Jain says hi, coach, from Abu Dhabi. There we go.
Times in Abu Dhabi.
Super cool. Dave Williams says hey from Oklahoma City. Ashley Long from North Carolina. Shrimpfish from Northumberland, UK. Super cool. Let me see here. Who else is in here? Carrie Hale is chiming in. What's up, Carrie? Running Geek Girl, hello. Man, we got so many of you guys in here.
Wow.
X Sinclair, hello from Florida. Cheryl Tube, hey from San Francisco.
Nice.
Our neighbor.
Stop on by.
Seriously. Who else do we have in here? Levi Landry from BC. I'm assuming that's British Columbia.
We have Craig's Green Smoothie from my kitchen.
Chiming in. I feel like
this is a regular on the show, though.
I know, it really is a regular on the show.
A little late on making today, so I'm
what they would do if we didn't have that in there. And just a few more names. Jim O'Connor, South Georgia, checking in. Sergio De La Rosa from LA.
Nice.
We gotta give all these guys a call out, right? Karina from Maryland. Hans Klopek from Quebec City. Christine Burns from Vancouver. Amazing. Pedro from Boston, running in the snow.
Has anybody noticed
so cool.
that our backdrop of plants has continued, one, to not die, and actually increased in the number of plants over the last few months?
You know what? I am very proud of Craig for this because we originally kicked this thing off probably last year, and I remember going out to get a bunch of plants and bring them in, and I don't know if I selected the right plants, but like half of them died, which I'm sort of used to, and I kind of thought the thing was going to fizzle, just because we're busy, and Craig's a bachelor, and just kind of does this thing.
What's that supposed to mean?
Hey, I don't always think of plants when I go through my day.
I'm extremely irresponsible. I make my own food. The plants are alive. I have a dog half time. I'm extremely
It is very
responsible.
true. So anyway, Craig continues to amaze and impress. And he got some new plants that are not only surviving, they are thriving
Thank you.
in the background.
Thank you.
So you guys will notice over time, we'll have to do like a multi-episode time lapse.
Pretty
We're just
soon.
going to see like
We'll
the
just-
shows
yeah.
just
A
expand.
jungle in
We're just
here.
going to be in a giant bush.
I really do like having plants in my house, though. Anyhow, let's keep moving.
I know.
So
Lizzie,
today-
Lizzie runs for us says, I noticed they aren't dead.
Yeah.
They're eating healthy smoothies, Tone. They are.
That's right. That's right.
They
See?
really, really are. So funny.
You guys know me too well now.
So let's move on and jump into the topic at hand.
Can I just make a quick side note before
Let's
we
not
jump into
jump
it?
in yet.
Not jumping yet. So we have been thinking about taking this audio and turning it into a podcast. So if you're listening right now and it's a podcast, that means we succeeded. If nobody ever hears this as a podcast, it means it has not succeeded yet. But yes, we have heard you. I know you guys, a lot of you who tune in after the fact or want to just listen to the audio in your car. It's always going to be a little bit delayed. Like we're never going to have it like, you know, right in the moment. But I'm just stating live on the show that this is hopefully going to get turned into a podcast so you guys can listen to this at your leisure. Of course, you'll be giving up these beautiful faces. I don't really know why you'd want to do that. I think you should just watch it on YouTube.
I know.
But be that as it may, we are gonna try to put it onto a podcast.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. So, you know, you're like 9 minutes in now. It's probably a good time to stop and stretch.
Yeah.
Do some leg swings, some other things. Get
There
some
you
deep
go.
breaths. Maybe we can get some like, you know, run coaching cues. In
I've been
there
working on my
in the
breathing a
mix.
lot.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
good. So we have a bunch of things to talk about today.
Let's do it.
And the main topic is our long runs, which we want to get into.
Hey, wait a minute, hold on. Is that my sister in there? Okay, hold
Leanne?
on. Yes.
Oh.
You go ahead and talk. I have a special announcement.
Okay. You do.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry about this.
Okay, but I can go on to the topic now.
You can go on the topic.
Okay.
Yeah. Just give me a second.
Okay. So while Craig is, you know, in between hijacking the conversation,
Yeah,
as
you know.
he is wont to do, I will move on with what we were talking about today, which is those long runs. And I want to get your guys' questions. I want to break this stuff down as much as possible, share our experience and perspective on things. There are a lot of different philosophies out there, and we're not even going to hazard to say that, you know, one is going to be right or wrong, but we will say that there are going to be some that are going to be more appropriate for what you're trying to do right now. I want to kind of cover, you know, how long the long runs should be, what pace they should be, how slow, you know, and also on the other end, like how much time should you guys be at race pace as you do this, as well as some of the other things that I have found helpful in terms of, you know, when I think of my weekly mileage and all the workouts I do,
Right.
like where does that long run fit in with everything else? So if you guys have questions on this, we would love to kind of jump in there, and we can kind of go ahead and do it. Hard to watch YouTube while running, podcast it up. It says Jude Scott, I love that. Rick says, thanks for the thoughts on stair climbing and how to fix the quads. I have slowed that training. Oh, good. That's a pickup from last time. So on those, you know, long runs, I think with a lot of plans out there, and as you guys are starting to, you know, chime in, we start to see just that gradual progression, you know, especially for let's talk about the marathon to keep things kind of simple.
Right.
You know, how far do we need to go? And I don't know about you, but I have seen marathon programs that go to the 18 or 20 mile marker, leaving the 6 miles a mystery.
Yep.
Or
And people are really nervous about that when that happens because they're like, oh, if I did the 18, am I going to be in shape for the 26?
yeah,
And yeah, it's a natural.
it's a natural thing. But to that I counter when people run and train for 100-mile events.
Right.
They rarely go beyond 60 miles because it's hard to do 80-mile
because
training runs.
You punish yourself.
So if those guys can go 40 miles into the unknown, we can go 6 miles into the unknown without dying. But some of you guys do upwards of 22 or 24 mile long runs. What is safe and effective there? The one thing that's really important to remember, guys, we're trying to accomplish a few different things with those long runs. Some of it is physiological, but a lot of it is actually, you know, the mental side as well. And the mental side of those long runs really has to do with your confidence, your ability to focus on a certain pace, to focus on your fueling and your eating, and just what is it like to run after like 2.5 hours in. Right? It's
I think
hard
the fueling, I think, for me personally, the fueling is the biggest thing because people talk about, you know, hey, like what's your race plan? What are you doing mentally? But what are you doing like physiologically with your hydration and your nutrition and your long run? for me, is the place where you really get to test this out.
Yeah.
And you get to test it out in very similar, race
Totally.
conditions.
And it comes down to like which socks are good to wear, because you're like, man,
Right.
I wore these one socks and I got this weird blister and I don't want that on race day.
Right.
Am I gonna run with a bottle in my hand? Do I wear a belt? Do I just grab water as I go? Is that enough? So you get to figure those things out, and especially for you guys who are on the newer side of the longer distance running, you're not gonna figure it out on after the first long run. Like, it's going to take not only the whole progression, but it's probably going to take a couple years. As you guys are experienced, you've been around, you may notice that your second round of marathon training, your third round, or your 15th, all of that experience adds up. And you get to know your body so much better on what you can handle, what you can't. And this also is inclusive for like different temperatures, different, terrain type things. So there's, what's going on there?
I messed up.
Yeah, you're doing little stuff. So we have a lot of stuff there, and looking at some of our questions here, Lizzie says, my questions on the long run is, I've noticed that my long run is over 30% of my mileage each week on the TRE marathon program. Is this okay? Because I'm doing the strengths 2 times per week. So that's a really good question. In one of the kind of coaching philosophies I've seen out there, and this is actually something put out by like the Hanson brothers, the marathon method, is they talk about, from a sustainability standpoint, they like to de-emphasize that long run, and they like to say, hey, it's not just about this one run. Like if the typical beginner plan that does all of their running on that long run over the weekend, and then they basically take 6 days to recover to do the long run again, is like, that's not going to be nearly as productive as spacing out those miles throughout the week.
Yeah.
And one of the things they gave as a target was like, your long run shouldn't be more than like 30-ish% of your weekly miles.
And I also think, I was talking to a friend who has a marathon coming up this Sunday.
Yeah.
And he was nervous going into this last week of training before the race. Like, hey, I feel like if I don't race this amount, if I don't run a lot this week, I'm going to lose my fitness. And this feeling of like, hey, if I don't do these things that, like, if I don't run the full distance, if I don't do the 23 miles, I only did the 21 miles, I'm losing the fitness and I'm not going to be ready for the race.
Right. There's that mental
It's a mental battle. And those things, I think, a lot of them don't actually bear out in reality. So the Hanson brothers method, in one way, is actually counting that and saying, hey, look, there are different ways to get your fitness in. And it doesn't have to be that you have to test out yourself out all the way to race distance.
Yeah, they would rather see those miles spread out through the entire week. But there's a caveat here with the Hanson brothers method. Like, they still have you run a lot of miles. And they have you run a lot of slow. It's just dispersed. So instead of like, a 15-mile long run on the weekend and, doing short events, like shorter weekday events, runs of like 4 to 5 miles, they might have you run like 10 to 12 on a Wednesday. And then down on Saturday. So it's dispersed more. The other thing I've noticed with Hanson brothers that they recommend some cross training, but Lizzie, for your question, their cross training isn't as robust as the strength training you're seeing in the run experience, which is what you're talking about. And what I found is that we can get away with a little bit less mileage when we're doing harder training, because they're trying to use miles to cover all their bases, to get their strength and everything else. And if you're getting some strength outside, you don't need as much miles to go. So I found that that's how you can maneuver that a little bit.
Usually, I mean, if you are going harder on the strength work, which is really building up your body so that you can handle the mileage, going hard on strength work and then really hard on mileage are you want to kind of phase those. So I would say that one of the reasons that we don't do high mileage is because we include so much strength work in our workouts.
Yep. Scott says, Nate, move into the frame better. I will do that. I know, right? I got to be nice and close, right? Exactly. Suratube says, my long runs are currently over 50% of my weekly miles. For people who are really beginner marathoners, like, it's going to be that way because you just can't handle that weekly mileage. The counter argument to this is that, for runners at the more elite level, like, they delay getting into a marathon and they're doing shorter distance events, but their mileage is high. And to really race that marathon, that's sort of what we're looking at.
How about,
so we don't want to scare you guys. Like, look, like, if you're like, don't get hung up on these percentages too much, right? These are just general guides depending where you want to go. You can survive the marathon with it being 50% mileage, and we'd rather you get exposed to some of those long runs if you're doing this race. But what it also tells us is your relative development as a runner to the goals you're going after.
Yeah.
And
I would pit somebody, you know, if I took the same runner and I really honed in on their nutrition and their hydration, I would put that runner up any day against the same runner who has done one more long run that is slightly higher mileage. Like the things that affect you when you go beyond the distance that you've ever gone in training are, it's not just have you run that far. It's how efficient are you, like how much you paying attention to your form later in the later 100%. Stage, like your nutrition and hydration so important.
So your running form and your strength and all those pieces can add up and put you in that mindset to really thrive and do well in those situations. So some good conversations here.
I got a question for you. Okay, so we talked about like percentages, actual like, are you doing the long run? How far is that? How should you feel going into the long run? Meaning like, what is your training the day before? Like, are you sore going into it? Are you sore coming out of it? How long do you wait?
So another thing that we can do when we de-emphasize that long run a little bit is that we can get used to actually coming into those long runs on tired legs.
Yep.
Like we did that a lot for our ultra training this last fall, and we can start to stack some runs together. So it's super common if you have let's say you're like a 15-mile run on, let's say, Sunday, to do like an 8 or 9 mile run the day before, or flipped and vice versa.
Right.
Because what you're trying to do is say like, look, maybe I'm gonna break down so much if I try to go really beyond, let's say, the 3-hour mark, that it is really risky. So what I could do is run 2 hours today and 1 hour the next day to kind of break that.
So I've actually never trained like this, but did you train like this for the 50K? Were you doing double miles at all? One or two times?
I was doing 6 and 7 mile runs on Fridays, and then I was hitting the long runs on Saturday, and then Sunday is the day with life.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But what I think a lot of athletes were doing is they were doing, you know, some runs on those Sundays of like 8 to 10 miles.
I spent Sunday with my guitar. Did I tell you that I named my guitar Nora?
Did you really?
I did. Not this one. This is my travel guitar.
The travel guitar Nora?
Travel guitar is Nora.
I love that. That's so cool.
This one's still waiting for a name.
An ode to the dog who's passed out right now.
Can I do a sidebar?
Let's go sidebar.
So, yesterday was a very special day. It's Pi Day, 3/14. It also happens to be the birthday of my favorite niece, Amelie. And so she's signed on right now, so I just want to give her a shout out. Amelie, happy birthday for yesterday. I'm glad we got to talk on the phone. I'm going to show a picture of her.
Oh, cool.
I couldn't get it on our screen. But this is Amelie and her brother Brennan. Andrew, my other nephew, is missing in that photo. But they're signing in from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So I think they're on right now.
Oh, that's so cool.
And hey, Leanne, actually, I'll tell you a little backstory. Leanne, their mother, who is my older sister, was kind of the origination, in my head, was the origination of where the run experience came from. A number of years ago, Leanne was running a 10K and was asking me for me to give her advice. And, you know, I've been a runner for a long time, but I was basically taking the same stuff that Nate was teaching me and kind of just spoon-feeding it to her. And I was like, you know, we should put more of this stuff online. And Nate was just starting to use Instagram. And we're like, hey, we should put some YouTube videos out.
Cool.
And that eventually became the run experience. So pretty cool. And Leanne has gone through a bunch of our programs. When I'm with her in a hotel, she like pulls up one of our strength programs.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So I love that. That is so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Guys, we're getting so many great questions around the long runs. It's so cool that you guys are really engaged on this. You know, Ravi asks, hey guys, Ravi from South Africa here, 40 years old, run 2 marathons and running for about 1.5 years in total. My 2 races, I tend to have bad patches between 24 and 35 kilometers. Then all good again. Any advice on that?
24 would be
just after the half marathon mark.
18 miles.
You know, we all have dark spots in different places. You know, like I would always, you know, have these dark spots in race, and sometimes like they would be at the 18-20 where you'd expect. A lot of times I would personally have them earlier. And one of the things I found was
I have them early on the race. I usually have them like 1 mile, 2 miles in, and I start thinking, oh God, I might be too tired. I'm getting too tired for this early in the race. Oh no.
So some of this is like, it's a natural thing to expect it. And sometimes when you expect the dark side, like you're going to come out the other. Like, I don't think anyone is going to go through a marathon without having any dark patches. It doesn't exist. And like, if it was easy, we wouldn't want to be here talking about it and doing it, because that's not interesting or challenging. So you're going to have that dark spot. But the questions to ask when you're going through dark spots, and the things that I like to check in personally are, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? And what's my pace? You know, those are like the things that I can control. And part of that I could even add to that is like, how's my breathing? You know, so it's like, am I hungry? Like, maybe I've been super amped the first half of the race. Everyone's high-fiving and cheering. You're so well trained that you can kind of burn a lot of matches through that first half marathon without realizing it. And then reality sinks in and you're like, shit.
I think the negative self-talk can really be a corrosive thing. I mean, you start feeling it. One of the things that I like to think about in terms of a mental framework is like that I am going to be observing myself throughout the race. Like, it's not so much that I'm in this thing where like, oh my God, I'm like, it's too tired. Like, what am I going to do? I got 15 miles left. I'm not going to make it. That's the sort of thing. I got to slow down. My legs are burning. I need, It's more like, oh, like I recognize that there's a little bit of pain in my lower Achilles. I recognize that, you know, I'm feeling like a little bit taxed just overall. Like, I feel pain in my shoulder, and I basically just acknowledge that the pain is there. And keep acknowledging, like, oh, I notice it's still there. Oh, it's and like really for me, concentrating on it and basically like, oh, this is what is happening right now, as opposed to
trying to hide.
Trying to like ignore it or like go into panic mode of like, this is the way it's always gonna be, but it's not gonna be that way, because if you just, you know, stay in the moment a little bit more.
It seems counterintuitive, but it works really well. And then, you know, the other thing that's really helpful is when you're suffering is to like cheer on other people next to you who might be suffering. Like, smile, give some high fives, get some high fives from the clouds, like from the crowd. Like, say you're doing a good job to other runners. Like, just that.
I wish you had been near me in the race, and you could have done that for me, but he didn't.
But you did it for Mario.
Left me behind.
You did it for Mario.
That's true.
Oh man. And to be fair, you took off on that first climb. You're like, later, bitch, and then you were gone.
Like, it just roped me back in.
I wrote you back in. I know. I wrote you back in. Oh my God.
I was feeling real good for that first mile out of the 33 miles we ran.
So I love this question from the Lone Trail. It says, do you recommend always keeping the effort pace on long runs easy, or should you sometimes do high intensity long runs? I love this. This is such a great, important topic. Now, for those of you guys who are really tackling your first marathon and maybe even your second, what we're really going for is finishing feeling strong with a smile. These long runs, if our body isn't used to it, just doing the mileage has so much impact and effect that we want to minimize that by going nice and slow. And like 1 to 2 minutes per mile beneath what we think our race pace would be.
Talk pace.
Exactly. And this is just aerobic. This just feels good. It's conversational. And that's how the first half of the run should be, because you know that just surviving the second is going to be the challenge. When you start to get more advanced, you're like, okay, I want to run a certain time. I want to run under 4 hours. I want to run under 3:45 or 3:30 or 3 or whatever it is for you.
2:10.
2:10.
Scott Bowes.
I know, like our friend Scott. We have to look up what he did.
I looked for the Japanese race. I couldn't find it.
Okay. Now we need to play the game of getting you specifically prepared to run those race paces, you know, while fatigued, and we need to practice that in the long runs. There's different ways to do it. I'd be interested to see like if you've messed with this a little bit in your previous marathons.
I mean, in terms, well, tell me what you do. I'll tell you what I do.
So the things that I like to recommend for my more advanced marathoners out there is to do some progressively paced long runs where you're taking the first half of the run really slow, that 1 to 2 minutes off of your goal marathon pace, and as you get like 8 weeks out, you're starting to spend the final 20%. 25% of the run at the end of the run pace. At the end of the run.
Same here. That's what I do.
So the balance is you're not trying to run the whole run at race pace, because that'll beat you up. It's a high risk for injury, and it just kind of cooks you, because remember, you've done all this mileage. You're doing speed and tempo work on other days. But you just get a little taste of it when your legs are tired. Mentally, you're like, okay, I'm at the end of my run and I can run at race pace. Check. Right. And then what I could do is, as the runs get a little longer, is that I could increase that percentage a little bit. But what a lot of advanced marathoners do when they are like, man, I got this stuff in the bag. Like I am, maybe I'll touch 20 or a little bit longer every once in a while, but I might do race pace intervals, like a mile on, a mile off, and they kind of go back and forth that way. And that's another interesting way to do it. But I would consider that a more advanced technique.
Very advanced. I feel like, pushing on your long run is something where if you push it all, whether it's at the end of the run or it's off and on like that, your rest and recovery better be an intensely focused part of your plan. Because if you do that on a Saturday and then you're like, Monday you're back at it as per normal, you've really, really taxed your body in order to get that benefit and not go either get injured or just not get the benefit of what you just did. Your rest and recovery, whether it's hydration or just like laying low for a while, easy movement, easy walks, whatever it is, has to be a part of it.
And here's an interesting thing with marathon training and all running. Like, as you guys get more fit, the racing doesn't get easier. It's actually the inverse. You actually have earned the ability to push yourself harder and suffer for longer periods of time. So when we're talking about people, more advanced marathoners running at that more advanced pace, the reason why it is that way is because they're running at like threshold, like on the edge the whole time. And this is way above their conversational pace. When you're a new athlete, it's like your marathon pace, kind of your conversational pace, that's what you're going for. But when you get more advanced, like you are able to drill it at a way that you can't do earlier.
And those guys, they're not racing very often. They have huge bases of high mileage. Actually, do you want to know what I did for my first marathon?
What's that?
My first marathon, circa 2004. I was a competitive track and cross country athlete in college. So I was coming off of 4 years of high mileage.
Continue your story.
Yeah.
But it is 12:31, and I just saw Jonathan.
Is he gonna come in?
So we're gonna have Jonathan call in like 2 minutes. So finish your story. And
so basically, I went out one day with a Cliff Bar in my hand and ran around Lake Washington. It was like a 23-mile run. I didn't actually know how long it was going to be. I just decided I'm going to go almost to the whole race distance. Yeah. No water, no plan. Just Cliff Bar in hand and took off.
Oh man.
And I destroyed myself. Like I got to the end of it and I was like, I was like not functioning. And my buddy took me home. But it's interesting. It was basically, I was already fit enough to finish the distance, but I wasn't racing it. It was, I destroyed myself. And inadvisable. Inadvisable.
Yeah. You got to save some of the magic for race day. You know, there's a lot of athletes who are, you know who you are, those super type A, where you crush your training, but then you show up a little empty on the
All right, is Jonathan going to call back?
So, Jonathan, let's have you call in, and let's get our little headphones set up and everything. Jonathan chimes in, hey, completely agree on fast finish long runs. Finishing the last 5-6 miles at goal pace took me to a new marathon level back when I was setting PRs. That is awesome.
This goes here. Here you go.
Here we go. So, Jonathan, the call-in number. Do we have the call-in number here?
Here he goes.
Yeah, here he is.
All right, hold on 1 second. All right.
Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent. So we're just going to do a little sound check because this is still new for us. Let's make sure, can you guys hear Jonathan okay?
Jonathan, why don't you give us a little bit of your bio?
All right, thanks. Well, I started running when I was 13, so way back before most of you guys were born. And did my first...
You're like what, 31 right now?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Exactly. 31 and 22. Right. Did my first marathon in 1980, actually. I was 16 years old. And just I've loved running. Actually studied all kinds of other stuff, but I always was in running and coaching and writing, and eventually ended up as editor-in-chief of Running Times in 2000, and was editor-in-chief till 2 years ago. And then I've been writing books and freelancing since then.
And Running Times was bought by Runner's World, correct?
It was, yes.
Yeah, and so your book is actually published by Runner's World, is that right?
It is.
Yeah,
one of them.
And this is your, how many books have you written now?
I've written 2.
2 books. Gotcha. I think I have the other one.
Yeah. So Jonathan, like, why don't you tell us like why you wanted to write this book and why this topic is so important to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, as editor of Running Times and as a runner, I really sort of bought into the minimalist movement. I thought that there was something here
Yeah.
about that shoes were overbuilt, that our strides had gotten sloppy, and we could improve them. And looking at the top runners, and I'd been in Kenya and seeing how people run, and saying, okay, this is how we should run. And then when it fell apart, yeah, it fell apart hard. Obviously,
Yeah.
a lot of research came out that said, no, it doesn't make you more efficient. It doesn't make you less prone to injury. Vibram was lawsuit against them. And
Yeah.
I know, that was interesting. So I've read, first.
Everything fell apart. I felt like what is it that we actually do know?
Right.
There is some truth here, but what is real, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, I really liked the actually. So guys, so full disclosure, Jonathan, sent me this book a couple weeks ago. I'm about 2 chapters in, and I was just getting so excited about just how he's sort of setting the tone for the whole book. And rather than asking the question, rather than saying I'm trying to prove my argument or to say that I'm right, he's really asking the question, what is true? What do we know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just such a different way to approach it, because you do see a lot of running methods out there and coaches that say, like, this is my way to do it. And one of the points you made is that, everyone out there can produce testimonials that shows their method works.
Right.
But they also have people who didn't make it. So
the war of attrition.
Totally. So who's right and who's wrong is not necessarily relevant yet. It's just like, well, what are aspects of what these guys are doing that is interesting?
Right. This morning Nate came in and was so excited about the book that he had started reading, and so we're like, "Whoa, maybe we should give one away on our live show." And then we just called up Jonathan. We're like, "Hey, how about you come in?" So Jonathan had about an hour notice, and has been very kind to send out 2 books to you guys, whoever wins the contest. So make sure to sign up in the Gleam link below. You will also see a link to Jonathan Beverly's site, which is jonathanbeverly.com.
Yep.
And you can look at all of his other work. Sign up to get. If you go on Twitter, he posts all of his stuff to Twitter, all of his articles,
Yeah.
and
and make sure you follow him there. So Jonathan, like, what were some of were there any things that you've discovered in writing this book that kind of surprised you or really shifted your perspective?
Yeah, actually, there are quite a few. The main one is just the idea that there isn't one best running form, and some people can heel strike and be very efficient. I mean, that was the big thing with minimalism. But even like cadence, some of the top researchers in cadence, this 180 or faster cadence is not always the best. But your body knows. So trust your body to know. And then the big paradigm shift for me was, I think we tend to think, we think that we train to get faster, we train to process more oxygen, but that we have to learn how to run, like swinging a bat or something. The experts agree that your body, that's a natural mechanism too, and the reason that you fall out of good form is because you don't have the right flexibility and strength. So you have to train to run better too. It's a matter of training yourself and getting the right strengths and flexibilities, and then your body will run properly. It's not a like learning how to shoot a basketball or swing a bat.
Right.
That it's one of the things that we always face a lot of questions about, actually, which is, people will go get like a running form analysis done, and somebody will tell them, hey, you land a little bit heavier on your right side and you pronate a little bit more, and you can't really consciously just change that. It's not like a tennis racket. What's that?
Can you up our volume a
little?
Volume? We're getting something that our volumes aren't perfect, so we're just going to up our volume a little so it's a little bit more even.
There you go.
There we go.
And so basically, from that perspective, we and what we see in your book as well is focusing on strength work and specific things around your movement that change how you move even in your everyday life, and then that translates into how you move better as an athlete.
Yeah, Jonathan, what are some of the bigger mistakes that you're still seeing runners do right now? And if there's what's that? Like, well, I've got so many questions, but just from that one, like, what are some of the bigger mistakes that you still see runners committing that you just like look and you're like, if they could only see it this way?
Well, again, most of it's not cueing them, and so but what you see the result of some of the errors is again the sort of sitting posture and reaching out in front of you. And all these people say, get upright, get balanced, get over your hips. And then I think one of the things you can cue a little bit, even though it takes work too, is getting your elbows back, getting your arms back. You see all these runners with their hands in front of their face.
Right.
And that immediately puts your balance back, and then you're behind your feet, and then you're reached out in front of you.
That's interesting on the balance perspective. I really love that. Like we talk a lot about how sitting all day affects just about everything.
Yep.
And we're kind of, I kind of like the joke of, when people look at their race photos, like, are you happy with how that looks? And most people are like, I'm like really excited to see my race photos that day, and they're like, oh, I look like that, like damn. And I kind of joke is like, if someone were to take a race photo of you, rocking emails at like 4 p.m, like, what do you look like? It's like, what are you telling your body the position you want it to be? And if it is that little hunched over position, like, I just feel like if we're telling ourselves to do that 8-10 hours a day, and then we're trying to tell ourselves to not do that for a couple minutes a few times a week, it's like that is a losing battle.
Yeah. You're a great example of that. Actually, I mean, Nate works here in the office and is constantly
punching
moving.
over my phone.
No, I mean, you're like, you put your legs up on the desk and like are stretching. He goes into the couch stretch in the middle of the afternoon.
Trying to do a little bit.
Yeah,
Trying
definitely.
to do a little bit.
Walks the talk.
And the other interesting thing, Jonathan, about that is that shoulder extension. Like, that is something that, runners, were really missing with like the upper body. So what are some of your favorite exercises to improve runners, arm swing, to get their elbows back more?
Well, one of the things I've been doing more and more, Brad Cox, AccuMobility from Boston, he talks about releasing the shoulders, and I think this is important. So he put a couple balls between your shoulder blades, and actually do a bridge onto that, and then bring your hands up over your head and back, and that really digs. I mean, the first time you do that, it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is painful, right?
But once you start getting a release, that's huge. And then when I coach cross country, and before we get started every morning, before we do the our lunge matrix and leg swings, we start out with just doing some arm swings and arm circles, and then catching your hands behind your back, pulling back and down. And
very cool.
And part of that is just opening up. For people who really have trouble, I do actually have a technique that some people think is cruel, but it works. Is you take like a 2-foot length of PVC pipe, and you put that on your back inside of your elbows, and so that keeps your elbows back. And immediately you start running with that, you can't bring your arm forward, so your posture has to change. Just to keep
yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding. Oh, like through your elbows, like the side. Okay, gotcha.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow,
so,
that would be...
so then your hands have to stay at your side, and once you relax your shoulders and get them back, you can actually swing your arms, but because your arms are swinging back, not forward. It's a little bit exaggerated, people are like, I hate that, but you do it for half a mile, and then you take it out, and then you changed your posture a bit.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Now, is that something you see as valuable for runners at all levels? Because like I work with a few, runners who come into my gym. Some of these guys will not be named, who are like sub 2:30 marathoners. And when I look at their range of motion in the gym, like their upper body sucks. Yeah. It's like their overhead, like their arm extension, they really struggle, and they recognize that, and that's why they're there. They're trying to improve it. Have you seen, this to be effective with, or do you even see elite runners pursuing this, or is it, just random people who are interested? Like what's been your experience there?
Well, that's a great question, and that's one thing I found in this. You're talking to the top coaches. The guy who works with Galen Rupp. They do this. They do this stuff every day. This is not about correcting and getting to a certain point. This is correcting for, as you said, modern lifestyles. And the more you get, your hip extension, your shoulder extension, your posture, your postural endurance. That's, I think, is a cool term. That can you hold yourself in a tall posture and your core together?
That. Postural endurance. I like that term.
For the whole, and they're working on this. If you're Kenenisa Bekele or you're a 4-hour marathoner, it's all the same stuff.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So why is this conversation only happening now in the running world? Why hasn't this been prevalent like 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think in the book
That's
I
a big
quote,
question.
it is a big question, but I think remember the guy, I can't think of his name now, Philadelphia Phillies. Uh, anyway, he said, I'm not an athlete, I'm a ball player. I think that we had that mentality of that, I'm not an athlete. Most of us that
Right.
became runners came because we weren't good at other sports. And so, just all we have to do is, persistently go out there and build the engine. And it's true. You build the engine and you can run horribly and you're still better than the person who can't process oxygen.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so we resisted the idea of building our athletic ability because we're just a runner. I'm just a stubborn runner that gets out there and does it. But I think that, and then we ended up being 53 years old and found out that, if we're going to keep doing this, we better start getting some mobility and some athleticism.
Yeah. So circling back to being an athlete as much as a runner. And it sounds like, we elevated specificity for so long, which is still really important, but we need to do the work that can empower us to train all that specificity. So there's that balance there, which is super interesting. Well, we're super interested in that conversation, and it's something that we really work hard to push out in all of our content. So we're just so excited that you have written this book,
codified it
and
into
are
a
really
book.
thinking about it.
Let's just remind people again, if you are signing on, this is Jonathan Beverly who's called in. He's the author of Your Best Stride. It's an excellent book. I'm actually waiting for my copy.
I know.
And maybe I'll just read this once he's done. And we're giving away 2 copies, so click the link below and you will not only be able to enter for the free book, but you'll find Jonathan Beverly's site, his Twitter link, and where he publishes all of his articles.
Yep.
He was editor-in-chief of the Running Times for a long time, and before it was bought by Runner's World, and so he has bbeen in this game for an extremely long time. And
wait a second, be careful. Not that long.
Not that long. Just he's very wise for his 31 years of age. We'll put it that way. Well, just some comments from our community, but before we let you go, Jonathan, Carrie Hale says, I have Jonathan's other book, Run Strong, Stay Hungry, and I love it. It has helped me so much. Really anxious to get this new book. Where is the best place to order? Carrie, we actually have a link to Jonathan's site where actually the book is featured prominently right there, and it takes you to an Amazon page. You can order right from there.
Yeah.
Is that the best place, Jonathan?
Yeah, I do. Thanks.
And of course, if you get the book and you enjoy it, make sure to leave him a review on Amazon. That is always appreciated by all authors, and I'm sure Jonathan will appreciate it.
Super helpful.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, thanks so much for spending some time with us on today. We'll have to get you on for round 2 sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have different topics every week, so we will arrange this. This has been great.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, and keep up the good work.
For sure.
All right.
Thanks,
Jonathan.
All right, let's see if I can...
Chiming off there, getting the sounds adjusted. That was so great. Thanks, Jonathan, for being on there with us, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We've really gotten to get to know him the last year, and he is just a good dude.
Yeah, he's been great.
So hopefully our sound is back and a regular thing.
You can take that out.
Remember, you can still enter and get a signed copy. We're giving away 2 copies, and all you need to do is click the link below.
We have 13 minutes. We would probably accept 1 phone call. If anybody has a question, you want to come on live, the number is below. I forget, it's 416-666-2861.
Yeah, if you guys want to jump in and take a live call, we would love to definitely do that.
If you're watching this and it's not live, please do not call that number.
Yes. So we got some other questions there in the place here. So Shubham Jain says, please suggest something to train for a marathon on high elevated places like 12,000 feet and above.
Wow.
So is this where you live and you're training constantly at 12,000 feet, or is this where the actual race is?
If we want to know. There's a lot of different ways that you can prepare yourself for that type of elevation. For sure, the one thing you don't want to do is train at sea level and then just jump up to elevation and think that things are going to go well. I promise you they will not. People are affected by elevation in different amounts. The amount of time, one, I would make sure that you're at that elevation at some point in time during your training so you can see how your body adapts to it. Having a 3 to 5 day period before the race where you're acclimating to the altitudes is great. If you can afford only a day or 2, then get there a day or 2. Whatever you can in front of your race is going to help you out. And then there are other like hacks that you can try in terms of increasing your red blood cell count. There are altitude tents that you can kind of place. It's like a tent that goes over your upper body that you can sleep in. That is one of the more effective ways, because the optimal, I mean, and you look at any high elite athletes, high-end elite athletes, the optimal situation is to have you're resting at elevation. So it's kind of like you want to train up on rest on a mountain, but then you want to train at sea level.
You know, it's interesting. Like there are so many different perspectives on the way this is done, and so much of what makes running interesting is that we're kind of at the forefront of science.
It's funny,
really what people say.
I'm just thinking like my thinking on this is actually might be really old. I haven't really.
So for example, like I've done some races at 10,000+ feet and 12,000 feet, and I was able to do some practice races and events at places like Tahoe. So I live at sea level, but I could go out to, up to Tahoe where I'm like between 6,000 and 8,000 feet and get some experience there just to see what that's like. So that's really important. Craig and I both react to altitude differently, and it actually has nothing to do with our fitness levels. There are kind of some genetic things. You kind of need to know, where you are. So just some practice is really good.
I have a very, very hard time at elevation. I went up Mount Whitney, which I think is a 14,000 foot, and didn't have any acclimation time, and I was easily the most fit person in our group, and I easily had the worst experience in terms of like altitude sickness, etc. And that has been consistent throughout my life. It's always been hard.
It's always been a challenge there.
I'm just meant to be in California at the
for
beach,
me,
not in the mountains.
I've actually always adjusted okay to the elevation, so I've always been able to do okay. Expect though, one of the challenges is going to be like, you're shaving 15% of your performance off the top until you're like fully adapted. And when you're at that high elevation, you're never going to be running faster. So for a lot of elite marathoners who are training at high elevations, they will actually like adjust their pace for what it would be, on the land, right? So they're not the same. They're adjusted slightly. What mantras do you guys use when you run long? That is Ben Coward asking. Ben, I saw you post a hat of the running experience.
Yeah,
you're looking good.
What is the one I used to have a long time ago? It was like smooth is fast and fast is smooth. I remember I used to have that through my head. I don't necessarily find that like mantras are that important to me personally. It just depends on who you are. I have kind of pictures in my head of like, I imagine, especially like when I'm trying to handle like my nerves before a race, I have kind of like a mental picture that I go through around trying to like focus on a single image. But mantras for me are not really where I focus. I tend to focus a lot on my breathing and the sound of my footsteps.
The things that I would tell myself if I'm racing, it'd be like relax equals fast. So I'd just say relax fast. Like you're all amped up, and I just need to be as calm as possible. And other places are just like smooth, breathe, things like that. Just trying to be as smooth as possible. And also for me, when I'm training before races, if it's a big race, I visualize as much as possible. So when I go into those areas where I'm suffering, I think about the suffering that I'm going to experience on race day and how I'm going to deal with that.
Interesting. I like that.
That's helpful. Like,
you never want to be shocked, mentally on the race day.
No, and just say like, okay, this is like solid. Like I'm suffering here on purpose. This is exactly where I want it to be, so that I can like push through that place on my race day. And if I have that specific goal I'm trying to do, that really kind of feeds the flame, so that when you go and when you hit, that point of suffering, you're like, man, this is a privilege. Like I've earned my right to suffer here. This isn't by accident. Remember, as we said earlier, the more fit you are, you're inviting suffering in. Like you're like, I am an open vessel. I want to suffer as much as possible. I want to outsuffer the guy next to me, because that's going to be the thing. And so the more you kind of think of it as like a positive in a weird way, it's not as bad.
I really like to like not focus on the pain, but like acknowledge it. Like actually don't try to avoid it, because I think the avoiding it makes this kind of like, it's very effortful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So a few more little like kind of odds and ends before we
Guys,
do our
4 more minutes until the drawing. So make sure you actually we're gonna be drawing last week's, but make sure you sign up for this week's. If anybody wants to go back into YouTube and find last week's, you have a couple more moments to to jump into that. That we always make the giveaway open for an entire week. So,
so
we'll do
the drawing next week.
Yeah, we'll do the drawing next week, and we'll be doing the drawing from last week,
which is some Surfs Up entries
to
a race. So we have about 500 people entered to our Surfs Up virtual race, which is crazy. And
they're all training with us. So like if you have not signed up for the Surfs Up 5K, you get a cool medal, little mini poster.
You get a free month of training.
Free month of training with us. Definitely sign up, and we're gonna be racing together.
Super excited about that. A few other things. We've started to do this. I don't know if you guys are in our weekly Running Tune-Up Facebook group. It is a closed group, but if you invite and we kind of know you're coming from our YouTube live shows, we'll let you in. I post every Tuesday a new challenge, a new strength, mobility, kind of core little challenge that is not meant to take long, usually like 5 minutes or less, and it's something you could practice each week that is additive to your training and beneficial, and I have you guys post below. So I actually have the link to this week's challenge that I'm going to drop in the comments, and this week's challenge was a 20 breath. Oh man, this is so long. It's
my
not
browser
letting me go in here.
I'm trying to show the browser, and it is.
Let me see if this works. This might work. Today's goal this week's goal in the plank was, rather than just suffer in a plank and stare at a time or clock, which we always do, I want you guys to get more thoughtful about your breathing. And this is like what Craig was talking about, how he focuses on his breathing with his run. Rather than focus on a certain time, I'm gonna have you focus for a certain number of breaths. So you're gonna hold a plank for 20 deep breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And if you're doing this right, this should be a 60+ second plank.
Do you remember when we used to have our original like webinars that we would?
Yeah.
And you'd have me doing this on the ground here.
Yeah, exactly. So
we have moved a long way.
I know, right?
From those days.
And then we have you do it in a reverse plank, which is another way to invert yourself, and another way to actually open up those shoulders, which Jonathan was just talking about before.
Yeah.
So 20 breath regular plank, 20 breath reverse plank. If that is super easy, and you're like, easy day, Nate, give me something harder, do a 20 breath single arm plank. Take one arm off. See how that goes. That makes things a little bit harder.
And try not to twist your body.
But check out that Facebook group. It is an awesome community of runners. We're like
almost 15,000 strong, aren't we?
It's pretty darn strong, but definitely go check that out.
Yeah.
Link does not seem to work.
They have to be in the group.
Right.
So just give them the group thing, and then they'll see the post there.
Right. Let me see if this works. You're gonna have to be.
It's gonna work for you because you're in the group.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll give you the regular group, and you're just gonna have to request entry into this thing, and then you can jump in from there. Here we go. And we're gonna do that every single week.
Yep.
And super fun.
And just so you guys know, the weekly running tune-up, which you can find on our site, is a product and program that we have where you get weekly workouts every week. You get a strength workout, you get a running workout, and then you get a bonus like mobility workout that you can drop into any plan at any skill level. There are variations depending on how strong and fast you are, and it comes out every Sunday. And we've had this for a year and a half now.
Yeah.
So we have hundreds, if not thousands, of people in there, and it's only $10 a month. So you can always drop that in, jump out. There's no obligation, so have at it. It's on our site under the training plans section of our website. Yeah,
totally. And a little sneak preview. If you go on our Instagram page and our Facebook page, Kirk just released a little video on hamstrings and a hamstring test that you guys can do. Actually Wednesday's YouTube video, yesterday's video that came out, was this great hamstring strength training that Kirk put out.
Oh, nice.
So really good practice. Rich says, guys, love the hamstring test exercise from Kirk on the YouTube channel. Everyone try it. Not easy, in all caps.
Nice.
And a few of you guys were chiming in. Lizzie says, I agree. I failed on the left side slightly. I felt droopy hip on that side. And then Tone says, and this might be a good way to end.
Right. What?
Why do I hear myself in the microphone? Oh, that's all right. Tone says true success is not absence of failure. It is the refusal to surrender. Lazarus from the Barclays Marathon. I think that is super cool. Let's do our giveaway.
Let's do it. All right, so we're going to do... Oh, have you already picked the winners?
Already, I'm about to pick the winners right here. Surf's Up virtual race. We'll take this guy out. And we are going to do our winners. 2 prizes.
Oh, you know what? There you go. I have it playing.
And that's why. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to draw. This is for our entry into the Surf's Up race with 2 things. We have 2 winners. Carrie Hale, you are a winner of our Surf's Up race from last week. So cool.
Awesome.
And we have Fred from Ermelo, the Netherlands. He is winning as well.
All right.
We can do the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. So Fred and Carrie, congratulations. We have your email address and we'll reach out to you.
You are the winner of the Surf's Up virtual race. And then next week, guys, you will be, after all the people who watch the show, like when it's not live,
yep.
This is the reason we do it. We want them to have an opportunity to enter as well. And next week we'll be doing a live drawing for this book.
Awesome.
Sounds good?
So good. Well, guys, it is 1.
It is 1 o'clock. We are going to, I guess, keep working. I was going to say something fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're going to keep working, you know? Spread the message.
Yeah.
Get it out to you guys.
Thank you so much for signing on, guys. This is absolutely a highlight of our week.
Yeah.
We have, almost 100 people on here at the same time. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And we just really treasure being able to kind of connect with you guys in person. So
and have you guys tuning in each and every week is such a cool thing.
And if you're listening to this as a podcast, congratulations. It's a podcast.
What Craig is doing to you podcasters is he has his hands in the thumbs up position.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, you
can't
can't see that.
So
right.
You're going to have to describe.
That's right. Guys, thanks so much for signing in. We will see you. And don't wait. We're going to have an outro. The outro is a new outro. Ready for this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Craig,